Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto awakens the 8 different types of chakra. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Konoha Village. Ninja School. In one of the classrooms, a Chunin teacher was standing by with a form in his hands. Next, Hitaki Fung. With the voice of the teacher, a young boy with short silver hair was walking to the podium very calmly, waving his fingers and hands, and making a simple knot in front of him. Boom! As the white smoke exploded with a bang, a clone appeared on the left side of Fung that looks almost exactly the same as him. This scene caused many girls in the classroom to cry out in exclamation. It was not only the reason that the clone technique was released once, but also because Feng's appearance was one of the best in the class. 95 points, not bad. The teacher nodded slightly at Fung and recorded the results. It was a one-time success with almost no major flaws. This result can be ranked in the top 10 in the class, but the teacher's eyes did not show much emotion. The reason is simple. Fung has a younger brother named Kakashi. He applied for early graduation and passed at the age of 5. He was promoted to genin at the age of 6. He's known as for his amazing talent. A genius who has inherited the will of Konoha's White Fang. In comparison, Fung is very ordinary. Although Fung is among the best in the class and all his results are already very good, there is no harm comparing. Today, the 8-year-old is still learning step by step in the ninja school, but it has never been as amazing as Kakashi's. The Chunin teacher was non-committal, but some of his classmates' voices still rang. Fung, that's amazing, 95 points, already the first place. Many girls stared at him with twinkling eyes. Traveling to this world, he inherited the lineage of Konoha White Fang. Feng's appearance is basically not much different from Kakashi, but he doesn't like wearing a mask, nor is he too cold like Kakashi. Fung walked back to his seat, smiled at Kurenai, who was looking at him, and said, "It's nothing, the cloning technique is not that difficult, you can do it by focusing." He came to this world 2 years ago, unexpectedly, and got the identity of Kakashi's elder brother, but the time he came was a little bit late, and failed to prevent Kakashi's father, Konoha's White Fang Hitaki Tsukumo's death. This incident greatly affected Kakashi, as he applied for an early graduation within a month. As a dignified traveler, inheriting the lineage of Konoha's White Fang, Fung is naturally no worse than Kakashi, but he thinks that graduating early is a stupid behavior, and he scorns this behavior. What are you doing? Isn't it good to practice slowly in ninja school and improve steadily? Why do you need to graduate early? What's more, it is Konoha's 42nd year. If I remember correctly, next year will be the time for the Third Ninja War to really begin. Recently, it can be said that the ninja world is in turmoil everywhere. If it's a peaceful period, it's okay to graduate early and become genin. Generally, you will perform some very ordinary tasks. However, even during this turbulent period before the war, even genins will often perform some dangerous combat tasks. Kakashi graduated at the age of 5, and was promoted to Chunin at the age of 6. It seemed amazing, but to Fung it was purely reckless, not to mention how dangerous the missions are after being promoted to Chunin class. Such high talent will definitely attract the attention of enemy villages. This is a turbulent time. Kumogakure Village, Kirigakure Village, Sanagakure Village, and Iwagakure Village almost all act on Konoha. A genius like Kakashi must be paid attention to by the other villages, which is not a good thing. If you can have the strength at the Jonin level, it would be okay to graduate early. Fung muttered in his heart. Unfortunately, he still does not have the strength of a Jonin, although he asked himself to be able to slap Kakashi. He is at most at Chunin level among the elite. This is because of a special ability that he possesses. At the age of 8, the body is still in the developmental stage. For a ninja, it will not be considered to have truly passed the developmental stage and reach a stable stage until the age of 16, that's right. The thing that is worth mentioning is the special ability that he possesses. It was a huge illusory clock pattern that he accidentally discovered after he crossed into this world. It exists in his mind and can be seen as long as he closed his eyes. This illusion clock is a bit like Toshizaki Kakuzo's technique, which has multiple abilities, but so far he has only unlocked a single one, that is time acceleration. It is similar to the inherent time control of the Fate world. It is the acceleration of time itself. Once activated, all his movements will become faster, including physical attacks, hand seals, etc., which is also the reason why he can go toe-to-toe with Kakashi. Now he can use up to twice the time to accelerate, which means that his speed will be twice as fast as normal when the time is accelerating. Feng, I brought 2 lunchboxes today. Do you want to eat together later? As Feng was still lost in thought, a girl sitting in the front row turned her head, her cheeks flushed slightly to Feng. This sentence immediately aroused the anger of other girls nearby, even the one sitting next to Feng. Kurenai also looked, and the smell of gunpowder permeated in an instant. Seeing this, Feng curled his lips helplessly. He probably understood why Kakashi had to wear a mask. Maybe it was because of this situation. This class lineup is quite luxurious. Besides the future behind-the-scenes boss Uchiha Obito, there's also Nohara Rin, Kurenai, Sarutobi Asuma and other original characters with names and surnames, though at this time Obito is dead last in terms of appearance and performance. It takes a few years for Uchiha Itachi to enter Konoha Ninja Academy. Uchiha Shisui did enter the Ninja Academy, but he was 2 grades lower than him. He was not in the same class, so there was almost no one whom he could play with. If Kakashi didn't graduate early, he might be able to share some of his popularity. Alas, being too popular is also a kind of distress. Feng sighed in his heart. He used to be envious of such a scene, but after he really experienced it, he could only sigh silently. But then again, the precocity of the girls in the Hokage world was even more outrageous than he thought. Looking at these girls who have been jealous since they were 8 or 9 years old, you can probably understand. Compared to girls, boys are just as precocious. The scene has already made many of them in the class cast jealous eyes, vaguely burning in anger, and some people even clenched their fists. That bastard, I really want to beat him up. But you can't beat him, shut up. Among some teenagers who gnashed their teeth and clenched their fists, there is also Uchiha Obito, because Nohara Rin is also one of the girls clustered around Feng. Feng doesn't care much about the others in the class. The only ones who he care about are Guy and Uchiha Obito. Obito is still basically not a threat, while Guy hasn't grown up yet. Seeing that the class became more and more chaotic, the girls began to rub gunpowder, and the boys also vaguely began to fight. The teacher finally couldn't bear it, and he shouted, "Quiet, next, Uchiha Obito." After a shout, the class quickly calmed down. After Obito took an angry glance at Feng, he walked up towards the platform. After taking a look at Nohara Rin, he took a deep breath, squeezed his fist. This test, he must pass. Boom! After his hand seal, white smoke flashed. A clone that appeared next to Obito looked a little slanted. Although it was still considered a clone, you can still see that it's fake through a glance. 50 points. The teacher glanced. The Uchiha see the concentration camp of geniuses because they are among the best in the school, but Uchiha Obito is an exception. Ah, no, I'll do it again. Naturally, Uchiha Obito was unreconciled by the mere score of 50 points, and immediately formed hand seals again, but due to the collapse of his mentality, his second release of the clone failed miserably. The final release was not much better than the first one. The final score only reached 55 points, failing to pass. Feng was also watching this scene. Only one thought flashed in her mind. Hatred is really outrageous. Just because he witnessed the death of Nohara Rin, Uchiha Obito was consumed with hatred and immediately transformed into a terrifying existence. Not only did it open his Sharingan, but it directly transformed into the Mangekyo, one of the strongest abilities of the Uchiha. It didn't take long for him to take revenge to Konoha and release the 9 tails, which indirectly killed the 4th Hokage Namikaze Minato, one of the big characters. Simply outrageous. If he didn't know the plot of the original story, he really couldn't imagine Uchiha Obito releasing such a poor cloning technique, and becoming one of the future big bosses in the ninja world. After shaking his head, Feng retracted his gaze. He doesn't have any thoughts about Obito. After all, Uchiha Madara is still the one controlling everything behind the scenes. Even without Obito, Madara can still produce another Uchiha to start the third ninja war. The most important thing to do now is to have enough strength. After all, a year later will be the beginning of the Third Ninja War. During the war, there will be no such thing as a graduation. Assessment. He would graduate compulsorily at 9 years old, which meant that he would stay in school for at least another year. I don't know if I can have enough strength in 1 year, Feng thought in his heart. In the Third Ninja War, Genin and Chunin were almost cannon fodder. Fortunately, he was in Konoha. If it was in other villages, even Jonins would be killed, because there is a Namikaze Minato that can kill 50 people in seconds. Even 50 Joninses would be no match for him. If he unlocks a few more time-based abilities, he can also cross the Jonin class with the power of time alone, but unfortunately only time acceleration can be used so far. He still needs to rely on ninjutsu and taijutsu. And just as Feng was thinking about it, a crisp ding-dong suddenly sounded in his mind, like the sound of a clock passing a certain point. Huh. Feng shook, a hint of joy flashed in his eyes, and he immediately closed his eyes. After he closed his eyes, a huge, silver-white, illusory-like clock appeared in the dark world before him, and he could clearly see the gold hour and minute hands. The hour hand did not move, still pointing to 1 o'clock. And in the center of the dial of Unreal Clock, there is a mechanical text dial that seems to record the date, but it is not the date that it records, but the multiplication of the time acceleration. No new abilities were unlocked, but, Feng groaned. Click. Along with his thoughts, the mechanical text made a clicking sound, turned it, and jumped from the number 0 to the number 1. Then it jumped to the number 2, and finally stopped at the number 3. Sure enough, you can enter the triple speed state. Seeing the numbers on the dial, Feng sighed softly. When he first crossed this world, the time acceleration he could manipulate was only between 1 and 1.5 times. About a year later, he heard the same ding-dong sound in his ears, and the upper limit of the time acceleration rate also changed. It became 2 times faster. Now the highest limit has become 3 times the speed. It seems that it is also the upper limit of the rate raised at this time last year, maybe every year. The upper limit of the time rate I can accelerate will increase once? Such a thought flashed in Feng's mind. Although it is impossible to confirm, it seems that this is the rule. It will be clear by this time next year. It's a little regrettable that I still haven't got the other abilities. I don't know when the ability corresponding to the 2 o'clock scale will be unlocked. However, the current time acceleration alone is also extremely powerful. What you can feel when time is accelerating is that the world in front of you has become slower several times. Whether it is your own speed or reaction speed, it is a conflict-free improvement. If an ordinary middle-class Jonin can increase the time flow rate by 5 times, then it is not a problem even to deal with an upper Jonin, and if an upper-class Jonin can increase the time flow rate by 5 times, even the 5 great cages may not be able to win. This is the same for Feng. As long as he has the strength of a middle Jonin level under normal circumstances, he can fight against upper Jonins, and with the strength of an upper-class Jonin. Looking at the entire ninja world, only a few people can touch him. This premise is only 5 times the speed. If the Unreal Clock can be increased to 10 times the speed or even higher, then the speed alone would be an extremely terrifying ability. How strong would the Hachiman be under 10 times the speed state? Feng added a picture. It was a huge air cannon 10 times larger than Shishang. Just one shot of it and it can penetrate the clouds and decimate the moon made by the Six-Path Sage, exploding into countless fragments. Thinking of this, Feng couldn't help taking a breath, and it took a few seconds before he calmed down. 10 times the speed plus Hachiman is still a bit far away, but Hachiman can indeed be trained. This should be one of the abilities that best complements his time acceleration. As for the others, ninjutsu will not be affected by the acceleration of time and accelerate the flight trajectory. The scope of the acceleration of time is limited to one's own body, so the speed of the hand seal and the release speed can be accelerated, which is no small matter. To know the release speed of a ninjutsu is very important. Just like the Thunder God's art that makes the enemy shudder, its power is that there is no seal and release delay. Speaking of, he is now able to achieve triple speed. He can already go toe-to-toe with Kakashi, who is already Chunin, at the double speed state. Now in the triple speed state, he should be able to easily defeat the average elite Chunin. There should be some gaps. Close to Special Jonin, Feng judged his current strength, and felt that he should be a little closer to the Special Upper Jonin, but at this time next year, reaching the level of special upper Jonin should not be a problem. In the world of ninjas, you can barely be regarded as strong by reaching special upper Jonin. The middle and lower ranks are basically cannon fodder in the war. In the upper Jonin, there are two divisions, the upper Jonin and the elite upper Jonin. The upper Jonin are the ANBUs, but this world does not have the name for the elite Jonins, but in terms of the level of ninja, the elite upper Jonin is the apex. Now, ninjas such as Konoha's White Fang and Shimura Danzo, who are far superior to the average elite Jonin, can be called S-class, to facilitate the distinction. Obito has been observing Feng's movements. When he saw Feng close his eyes with his eyelids shaking a few times, Obito clenched his fist. He felt as if Feng was looking down at him. Damn, such arrogance, the guy who was left behind by his brother, Obito gritted his teeth. But Kakashi is also an arrogant bastard. Although he graduated early in less than half a year, he felt uncomfortable with both of them. I heard that Kakashi followed a Jonin to complete an A- level mission not long ago. Although he's a bit unwilling, he can't help but agree, that guy is indeed a bit powerful. He was promoted to Chunin last year. Maybe it won't take long for him to become a Jonin. Feng's performance in the class is usually within the top 10, and he occasionally takes the first place. Since they can't mock Feng for his grades and performance, they can only bring up and compensate him. After all, compared with Kakashi, who graduated at the age of 5 and was promoted to Chunin at the age of 6, Feng's light was immediately covered, and it was even somewhat difficult to compare him with Kakashi. Someone heard Obito and deliberately followed him. He glanced at Feng and said casually, "Although I don't want to admit it, that guy is indeed a genius. Compared with him, someone seemed to be less qualified to be actually called as his brother." This sentence obviously targeted him. Before Feng had any reaction, the girl sitting in front of him, Yamanaka Hana, stood up, looked at the talking Inuzuka Kai angrily, and said, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Being glared at by a girl, naturally it's impossible for him to shrink back, and said, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" Yamanaka was annoyed, but couldn't find the words to refute him. Feng opened his eyes, looked at her, and smiled indifferently. That guy Kakashi is indeed a genius. It is very difficult for ordinary people to be compared with him. She nodded and said, You don't need to pay attention to them, Feng. A ninja like your brother has never appeared for many years. You don't need to be like Kakashi." Kurenai nodded in agreement. As long as he wasn't compared with Kakashi, that monster, Feng could already be called a genius with outstanding performance in this class. Feng was interrupted before he finished speaking, shrugged innocently, and didn't make much excuses. He just looked at Kurenai and smiled. Seeing that Feng didn't want to argue with him, and that the girls reached an agreement, Inuzuka Kai and company could only grumble by themselves and mutter a few words and withdraw their eyes. Kurenai looked at Feng. Her big beautiful eyes flickered slightly, and she whispered, "With a brother like Kakashi, the pressure should be quite high." "It's not." Feng looked at Kurenai and said with a smile, "What's the pressure? The stronger my brother is, the better. We're not the Hyuga clan." Kurenai blinked and said, "What about the Hyuga clan?" "Oh, you don't know." Feng briefly talked about the family and division of the Hyuga clan, which made Kurenai a little surprised. Kurenai looked at a person at the corner of the class and whispered in her heart, "I didn't expect the famous Hyuga to be like this." The person sitting in the corner is called Hyuga Hizashi. He is the nephew of the Hyuga clan's current patriarch and a member of the branch. As a member of the Hyuga clan, he has the pride of being famous. He is very disdainful of Feng, who is often surrounded by girls. His grades have always been the first and second in the class. His target is to surpass Kakashi. In fact, if he wants to, he can graduate early, but his family's elders warned him about it, and that it is better for him to practice step by step in the academy, so he just did it. He vaguely heard Feng mentioning the Hyuga clan, and Hizashi turned his head to look at Feng, and frowned slightly, but he couldn't understand what Feng was saying. Although he can't hear clearly, he can probably guess that Feng mentioned the Hyuga clan, and Hyuga Hizashi's eyes flickered. This guy is really somewhat arrogant. Although he is a bit uncomfortable with things like being surrounded by girls and being popular, he would just ignore it. But it would be another matter if it concerned the clan. Should he warn him after class? Hyuga Hizashi's eyes flickered. Feng is not Kakashi after all, and in his eyes, only Kakashi can beat him among people of similar age. Just as Hisashi was thinking about if he should confront him, the last student also completed the practice test of the cloning technique. The teacher recorded the final scores, glanced at the transcript, and said, "Today's test is over. The ones who failed are Uchiha Obito, Uenada." The teacher mentioned one after another. "Or the students who failed to pass. After a few more lessons you still need some more practice. Tomorrow there will be a simulation test, and all of you should be ready. 4 days later are the formal entrance examinations. Those who failed to pass will stay in school during their winter vacation until they pass the examination." As the teacher's voice fell, many students finally took a sigh of relief. Uchiha Obito and the others who failed the test had an ugly look on their face. Of course, no one wanted to practice during the winter vacation. It would be shameful not to mention it would be on a holiday. "That's it for today, you may go home early." The teacher put the transcript into the folder, and after sorting it out, he addressed the students in the class. Hearing what the teacher said, they stood up and bowed to him. After the teacher nodded and left the classroom, they all dispersed. After getting rid of the girls like Kurenai and Yamanaka, Feng quickly returned home with the reason of, "I have something to do, I will go back first." It's interesting to see these precocious 8-year-old and 9-year-old girls jealous, but Feng has more important things to do, and that is to practice the state of triple speed as soon as possible. After a simple dinner, Feng came to the backyard, entered the state of triple speed, and began to shake his fist against the pegs placed in the backyard to exercise. In order to make the body grow faster, in addition to training the double speed state during exercise, Feng also activates double speed during normal sleep. The cell division and metabolism of the body also becomes faster, making his body transform twice in a single day. So although his age is 8 years old, his actual physical age is already 9 years old due to his training even while asleep. If you keep turning on the double speed state, your body can grow faster, but it's really boring to turn on the double speed state at ordinary times. Listening to a class is like playing at a rate of 0.5 times. Every word of the teacher will be stretched, which is compelling. Moreover, if you keep double speed on, in order to make yourself appear normal, you have to slow down your speaking speed and movements, which is very troublesome, so Feng doesn't activate it while in school. Boom. 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 Feng's fists kept falling on the wooden stakes, making a dull sound, and the tough special wooden stakes had very obvious depression marks from his fists. He still needs to train hard on his body. For him, the ability of time acceleration now has two functions. One is to have a base speed that is more than twice the average compared to a normal person and can be stacked at will. As for the second, it is to increase the speed and the time of cultivation. Cultivating for 3 hours in triple speed state is equivalent to 1 hour in normal time. Speaking of, regardless whether it be in the state of combat or practice, the acceleration of time not only enhances his speed but also his strength, because according to Newton's second law, the more speed an object has then the more power it would have. The same applies in this world. Feng still vaguely remembered that a character in a certain world said this. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked with the speed of light? If he reached the speed of light under the acceleration of time, then could the power of his single blow be able to destroy this world? Shadow clone technique. After adapting to the triple speed state for a while, Feng stopped his movements and immediately did hand seals and used shadow clone. Boom. Boom. Along with a smoke, 2 identical Feng appeared on his left and right. Shadow clone technique, which can be called the strongest training aid, is naturally impossible for Feng to not use. He had obtained the complete method of shadow clone technique from Kakashi a long time ago. If he used this technique in school, his classmates will undoubtedly be shocked, because the technique of shadow clone he just casted is at B level, which is 3 levels behind the E level ordinary clone. Even some Chunin may not be able to cast this shadow clone skillfully. This skill of shadow clone alone was enough to crush most of the studiote from the ninja school early. Whoosh, whoosh, after the 2 shadow clones appeared, they ran to the sides of the courtyard one by one. One of shadow clone picked up a short knife placed on the left side of the yard. It was the sword left by White Fang that was inherited by him as the eldest son. The famous Hitaki swordsmanship of the ninja world, Feng has also been practicing it diligently, because it is a combination of physical skills using chakra, and it is compatible with his time acceleration. It can be said that, if he can practice the Hitaki swordsmanship to the level of his father, the whole of ninja world is absolutely nothing to say. In the state of double speed, he can even fight against those who exceed S-class level. Another shadow clone is in another corner of the yard, restraining chakra in the palm of the hand, letting it condense into a spherical shape. Yes, it is the Rasengan. The core of Rasengan is the shape of chakra, and because it is a close contact ninjutsu, it also has the ability to double the speed of time. But the most important thing is that practicing the Rasengan helps improve the control of chakra. Feng has already mastered climbing trees and treading water. But to further improve his chakra control, practicing Rasengan is undoubtedly a good method. It's just that his chakra volume is far less compared to Naruto, so his progress in practicing Rasengan is slow. It has only been half completed even after a few months. With the triple speed state, my body will grow to about 10 years old in about a month. It should barely be up to the standard for practicing Hachiman. Feng was thinking about his future direction while practicing. Hachiman is very important to him, but because the side effects would be very serious and he's too young to be able to practice, he didn't go to Might Dai to try to ask for lessons. But no matter what, he still needs to obtain the training method for the Hachiman. Although the side effects are huge, the effects would be beyond doubt. Feng is very clear about the core of his practice, which is to improve his strength in all directions as much as possible. In this way, under the state of accelerating time, he can display his strength 3 or 5 times. After all, to him, the unreal clock brings almost like the intrinsic time control that has no side effects and can be turned on normally. It is a more advanced version of the ability of the Holy Grail world. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The clone was constantly swinging the sword of White Fang in his hand. Although the shadow clone cannot enjoy the state of time acceleration, this does not prevent Feng from using shadow clone to practice. He needed the experience and proficiency in training the Hitaki swordsmanship. On the other side of the courtyard, the other shadow clone is still forming the Rasengan. There are strands of chakras condensed in the palm of the hand, allowing these chakras to continuously rotate to form a hazy spherical halo. Puff, puff. After practicing for a while, the two shadow clones ran out of chakras and disappeared into a puff of smoke. Feng stopped his movements and immediately absorbed the experience and memories from his clones to his mind. After taking a deep breath, Feng sealed again. Boom, boom. Another 2 clones appeared. After his second summon of the shadow clones, Feng's forehead showed a trace of sweat, and he could clearly feel that the chakra in his body had decreased. My chakra quantity is going to be a problem, Feng sighed in his heart. When Naruto performs the shadow clone technique, he can summon dozens or hundreds of shadow clones in an instant. That occurrence is simply outrageous. After all, he had the physique of the Uzumaki family and the chakra of the Kyuubi. With the combination of the two, his chakra reserve would be so huge that it is difficult to imitate. After practicing for a while, the 2 shadow clone once again turned into white smoke and disappeared. Feng did not continue to summon shadow clones, because his body has been training his physical skills, while his chakra is also depleted while practicing the Rasengan. He can only use shadow clone twice with 2 clones each time, which is his limit. 1377, 1378. Feng muttered while constantly kicking on a peculiar wooden pole stake while in his kicking posture. When he felt that his body could not hold on further, he stopped. Feng activated time acceleration, walked to the side of the small courtyard, slowly picked up the water glass, took a sip, and ate 2 more biscuits. When time acceleration is activated, then his recovery will be faster. If it has been activated with 3 times the acceleration, then for Feng, it would be equivalent to 72 hours in a single day. During this process, he has to eat 9 meals and sleep 3 times. I don't know if I can still practice with a whole body fracture and a high fever of 49 degrees, but I can do it for more than 25 hours a day. Feng murmured silently in his heart. Just as Feng was about to continue his training, he suddenly noticed something. He looked up at the outer wall on the side of the small courtyard and said, "It seems that you have developed the habit of not going to the front entrance." Someone appeared on the outer wall. It was a familiar figure, with the same silver-white hair, and wearing a mask. It was Hitaki Kakashi. "No, I just came back from that direction." Kakashi jumped off and landed in the courtyard. Standing close together, the difference between Kakashi and Feng is obviously not small. One is that the other has a little bit of longer hair. Next is one of them is wearing a mask. And the third is that Kakashi's height and body shape are obviously smaller compared to Feng. Kakashi looked at Feng and said, "Just as you told me, brother, the friction between the villages has become more intense. The most recent mission that we did is to block and investigate each other." Yeah, just as Feng expected. After all, he already knew what would happen. Except for a few things in ninja school, it had no impact on the direction of the world. Under the general trend, next year must be the year when the third ninja war will break out. "Aren't you planning to graduate? There is nothing you can learn by staying in school." Kakashi looked at Feng. Others may not know, but he knows how strong Feng is. At least so far, he has never won a duel with his elder brother. You must know that he endured the promotion last year. After the promotion, he also came to Feng to challenge, but he still couldn't beat Feng. Feng's speed was almost abnormal. Not only that, Feng is not only powerful, but he's also a very intelligent individual. Although he is only a year older than him, he could think fast and make a decision about certain situations immediately. Just like an adult. Feng looked at Kakashi and smiled, and said, "It's true that I can't learn anything from the school, but I could have more time to practice on my own." Say, have you come into contact with what I said recently? How many techniques? Because Kakashi is already a Chunin, Kakashi can learn far more ninjutsu than him. And actually, Feng learned a lot of ninjutsu from Kakashi. In addition, he told Kakashi to mainly focus on obtaining two techniques. One is the Flying Raijin, and the other is Hachiman. Needless to say, Hachiman is a technique that he must obtain anyway. He could also try to practice the Flying Raijin since it's only natural to have one or two life-saving techniques. Even if he fails to master it, for a person who could already control time, space ninjutsu isn't that important. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Those techniques are in the Book of Seals. How can they be so easily accessible? Although he was already a middle-class Chunin and could also come into contact with many techniques, such as the Shadow Clone. But for the Flying Raijin and the Hachiman, which belonged to the Forbidden Arts category, it was still not that easy to access. There will always be a chance. Feng Ashi becomes a Jonin, it would not be difficult for him to gain access to those techniques. But then again, Kakashi became a Jonin at the age of 12. Maybe he would be even faster than Kakashi. After all, you will be forced to graduate next year anyway, and then there will be the Ninja World War. In the war, there would be no room for you to hide your skills. Faced with countless dangers, you must go all out. Kakashi shook his head. Good for you that you can bear it. He was greatly affected by their father's suicide because of the criticism he received from the village. He didn't want to be looked down upon, so he revealed his extraordinary talents. He graduated at the age of 5 and was promoted to Chunin at the age of 6. Now everyone looked at him in a new light. But Feng studied step by step in the ninja school, which was in sharp contrast with a 6-year-old Kakashi who was promoted to Chunin. During that time, discussions were heard almost everywhere in the village. Only Kakashi knew that Feng's strength was above his. However, Feng was unmoved at all. Ignoring all those criticisms, he still calmly goes to school normally, and never mentioned anything like graduating early. Feng sighed and said, "You still don't understand. The famous White Fang of Konoha, Hitaki Sakumo, who made great achievements in the Second Ninja War, was forced to commit suicide by the villagers just because of a single failed mission? Nonsense. Feng in his previous life may not be sure, but Feng, who came to this world and experienced this incident, clearly knew that the development of this incident must have been caused by a higher-up. At the very least Sarutobi Hiruzen, the third Hokage, never came forward to clarify this. Otherwise, it would only be a matter of a few words to conceal this mission, especially since he was forced to choose between completing the mission or to abandon his teammate. Although Feng was unable to determine the specific reason, he could roughly guess that Danzo must be involved, because Hitaki Sakumo has threatened Danzo's status. With his strength and military contributions, without any accidents, Hitaki Sakumo can succeed in the position of being the fourth Hokage. This may be the reason why Danzo was threatened. Since Hitaki Tsukumo's death is connected to Danzo, Feng believed that he and Kakashi are being observed. It's okay for Kakashi to show his extraordinary talents alone, because even if Danzo wants to recruit Kakashi in his rude organization, Hiruzen would never agree. But if he also showed amazing talent, then it would be different. Based on his understanding of Danzo's character, this guy must be able to come up with 10,000 reasons to convince Hiruzen to let him and Kakashi join Root. It is naturally impossible for Feng to join Root. Kakashi is also his younger brother, so it would also be impossible for him to enter Root and be brainwashed by Danzo. Understand what? Kakashi looked at Feng in confusion. Feng shook his head and didn't intend to explain these things to Kakashi. Kakashi was still too young and had a rather extreme personality. It would be better to not let him understand about Konoha's darkness. But it's almost time. Feng showed a thoughtful look. Now that the world has entered the tense situation before the Third Ninja World War, in this situation, even if he reveals his strength, it would be for naught. Danzo has not yet revealed his intentions and he's still expanding his organization. So he must be on guard, as there should also be some placed on the other villages. The Third Ninja War is both a crisis and an opportunity. Kakashi will be promoted to Jonin in the war, and he will be the same. Once both of them are promoted to Jonin, they would be able to get rid of Danzo. If the war is over, Danzo will have a reason to arbitrarily move the village, even if Sarutobi does not agree with it. After thinking about it a little more, it is not impossible for him to improve his strength during the Third Ninja War to surpass Upper Jonin, and possess the strength comparable to the Cage's. After all, he has an illusory clock and has the power to manipulate time. By the way, I don't know how your recent practice went, brother. After Kakashi looked at the wooden stakes placed in the courtyard, he turned his head to look at Feng. A faint gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Although he has never beaten Feng, he has never given up on the idea of defeating him, especially in this recent period. After experiencing continuous battles, he feels that his strength has improved a lot. If Feng neglects his practice, then he might have a chance to beat him this time. After all, he has never slacked off since he became a Chunin. He has been working hard to practice, and he has experienced countless life and death battles that made his strength improve. Feng raised his eyebrows. Feng knew what Kakashi meant by saying this. Well, I also want to see how much you have improved recently. Konoha. Back Mountain. Kakashi has already become Chunin, and Feng's strength also reached Chunin. It is naturally impossible for the two to spar against each other in the small courtyard. Are you ready? Standing in the open space, Kakashi held a kunai in both hands. Looking at Feng from a distance, leaning forward slightly, he was already in his fighting state. Feng stood on the spot, holding the chakra sword, calmly looking at Kakashi, and said, "Come, whoosh." The moment Feng's voice fell, Kakashi's figure rushed over. His two kunais turned into afterimages and flew towards Feng's left and right to attack. Feng unhurriedly waved the chakra sword in his hand and fought up and down to block Kakashi's offensive. Kang! After resisting a few moves, Feng's eyes flashed, and the chakra sword in his hand suddenly smashed, breaking Kakashi's kunai's defenses abruptly, and slashed towards Kakashi's chest. Kakashi's figure turned into smoke in an instant. Shadow Clone. Fire Art. Howling Fireball. In the next instant, a voice came from behind Feng, and a huge fireball was seen blasting towards him. Feng's countenance remained unchanged. As he stepped on the ground, he flew a certain distance, avoiding the frontal attack of the fireball. Whoosh! 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 In the next instant, 7 or 8 shurikens spun out of the fireball, wrapped in flames, completely blocking Feng's retreat. He's already very skilled in his shuriken jutsu combo. Feng smiled, and the chakra sword in his hand suddenly turned into an afterimage, showing a strange speed, drawing silk threads in the air. 7 or 8 shurikens wrapped in flames were immediately repelled by Feng. Whoosh! Almost at the same time that Feng blocked the shurikens, Kakashi's figure emerged from the ground less than 1 meter behind Feng, and the kunai in his hand reached Feng's vest and stopped a millimeter from it. I won. Kakashi's forehead overflowed with a trace of sweat, and a ray of light flashed in his eyes. This is the first time he has won against Feng. However, at this moment, Feng, who was standing in front of him, turned his head, smiled faintly at him, and said, "Do you really think so?" Bang! As the voice fell, Feng's body moved backwards and deliberately pierced himself into Kakashi's kunai, making his whole person disappear and turn into smoke. This action stunned Kakashi, revealing a hint of disbelief. Clone? How is it possible? Before Kakashi could react, there was a gust of wind behind him. Kakashi turned around and waved his arm to block, but he was still kicked flying. He felt a heavy force transmitted to his arm, making Kakashi unable to resist, as he staggered back 5 or 6 steps, making it difficult for him to stabilize his figure. That was a shadow clone just now? Kakashi looked at Feng in disbelief. During the whole process, he obviously didn't see Feng form hand seals to cast the shadow clone, as it would also be impossible for him to not notice it. No, Feng shook his head and said, "That was just an ordinary clone." Kakashi was taken aback, and said incomprehensibly, "Impossible. Ordinary clones are not capable it blocked my shurikens, the chakra sword." "What blocked your shuriken is my main body." Feng smiled faintly, and said, "Just saying it won't help you understand, watch closely." The voice fell along. While Feng is holding the chakra sword with his left hand, his right hand formed hand seals one after another at an almost instantaneous speed. Shadow clone. Body replacement. This, Kakashi was dumbfounded for a moment. Of course he also knows how to do both shadow clone and body replacement. This is the most basic jutsu taught in ninja school, so it's not that surprising for Feng to use this. What really made him shocked is the speed on how Feng casted his hand seals. Forming hand seals in one hand, and the speed of Feng is even faster than those who do two-handed seals. He knew long ago that Feng is fast, much faster than him, but this time Feng's hand seals are even faster than the last time they sparred. "What's the matter with your fingers? That speed isn't something a normal person can do," Kakashi asked with his eyes wide opened. Feng was not surprised by Kakashi's reaction. After all, he used triple speed this time. The double speed accelerator may still look normal, but once he triples his speed it would look completely abnormal from the perspective of a normal person. Who knows? Feng shrugged and said, "Maybe my motor nerves are different from ordinary people." Kakashi looked at Feng with a serious expression as he thought, no matter how different your motor nerves are from ordinary people, it cannot be as exaggerated as what you just did just now. "I remember you weren't that fast last time. It seems that since 2 years ago, you have been getting faster and faster." Kakashi recalled the weird scenes that he had seen occasionally before, and he frowned. He pondered, and said, "This situation is obviously abnormal. It is about to reach the boundary of being a bloodline limit. If you can do it even faster then." Bloodline limit. This is a world that ninjas are the majority. There are many bloodline inheritances in this world. And the most common effect of it is the change and fusion of one's chakra nature. It also includes the dojutsus like the Sharingan, Byakugan etc. The speed that Feng showed was actually nothing in front of a Jonin, but the problem was that his speed seemed very abnormal, as if his whole person was in a certain state, a state that disconnected him from the world. The only explanation that he can think of was the bloodline limit. The Hitaki clan has inherited the Hitaki swordsmanship from ancient times to the present, and there hasn't been any bloodline ceremony along with it. But there are also many instances of ordinary ninjas awakening their bloodline in the ninja world. The special state that Feng achieved on his body may not still be considered as a bloodline limit, but if he can successfully awaken it, then the speed that he can muster would be much faster once he mastered how to properly use it. "Well, that seems to be the case," Feng said thoughtfully. For the unreal clock, bloodline limit would indeed be a suitable explanation. The ninja world has all kinds of strange abilities. Even a technique like Izanagi can be seen, so it's not impossible to see a bloodline that increases one's speed. Kakashi looked at Feng thoughtfully and said, "If you think so, then that should be it. But I have never seen and heard of this type of bloodline limit, and there is nothing close that's similar to it." Feng touched his chin and said, "If there is no record of it, then I should be the first to awaken this. In that case, let's just call it ghost release." Kakashi said, "That kind of non-human movement speed is indeed like a ghost, it fits the image." Feng murmured silently in his heart, but whether it was really a ghost or not, he only needed it for a cover-up. If you really regard this ability as a bloodline limit, then it should be called Time control bloodline limit, but this is very unfair. Kakashi looked at Feng dead in the eye and said, "No wonder I can't win against you. With your bloodline activated, this kind of thing is considered cheating." Feng smiled and said, "When a ninja is fighting in the battlefield, is it still cheating if he uses abilities that can help him win? But since you say that, then I won't use this ability again when we spar." Kakashi is indeed a genius. Although he also inherited the lineage of Konoha's White Fang, Feng's talent in ninjutsu is indeed not as good as Kakashi's, but this does not prevent him from overpowering Kakashi. That is because he has more time to practice and improve his skills than Kakashi. The effect of time acceleration can not only be applied in combat, but also in cultivation. From the time of his crossing, Feng's cultivation time so far is at least twice that of Kakashi. Forget it. Kakashi thought for a moment, then shook his head. Bloodline limit is indeed a ninja's own ability. It's not cheating. Even if he wins against Feng who didn't use bloodline limit, then he still won't be satisfied about it. The ninja world has never heard of the saying that others are not allowed to use their bloodline to fight. But even if you have a bloodline limit, that doesn't mean that you would always be stronger than me. If you are not careful, I will surpass you. Kakashi looked at Feng without showing any discouraged expression. After all, having a bloodline limit does not make an individual invincible. The third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi had no bloodline limit, but his name reverberates in the entire ninja world, and was even regarded by the ninjas of Konoha as the strongest amongst the 5 Kages. Then I will wait for that day. Feng smiled and reached out to touch Kakashi's head, but Kakashi frowned and jumped away. And just as Kakashi was planning to complain about Feng not to use this kind of childish act, a voice that seemed to be full of vitality suddenly sounded from not far away. "Ah, Kakashi, you're here. I've been looking for you for a long time." Feng turned to look and saw a teenager in green tights rushing over from the bushes. He already guessed the identity of this person. Mike Guy, who rushed out, ignored Feng completely, and jumped towards Kakashi, and kicked him immediately. A showdown. Kakashi, look at my move, Konoha Cyclone. Kakashi glanced at Guy with a bored expression, waved his arms to block, and made a sidekick. Guy took Kakashi's counterattack. Endless battle intent surged in his body, and said, "This time I will win, Kakashi, be careful." Bang! Boom! Boom! In a flash, Guy and Kakashi fought each other. In the original book, Guy regarded Kakashi as his rival during the whole period, and has been working hard to challenge Kakashi. Feng looked at Guy and Kakashi fighting, shrugged, jumped to a tree, and continued to observe at them. Guy, who was able to train the Hachiman up to the 8th gate, has a talent in taijutsu, but now Guy has not yet learned the Hachiman, although he can suppress Kakashi in pure physical skills. As soon as Kakashi used ninjutsu and other techniques, you will immediately know who has the upper hand. Chi. Kakashi was not in a good mood since he was defeated by Feng, so after a few rounds of fighting with Guy, he directly used Thunder Cutter Jutsu, and with a bang, Guy flew backwards, and all his hair was erected by electricity and emitted a burnt smell. Tisk, damn, Guy fell not far away. Knowing that he had been defeated again, he did not admit defeat, but made a smoke from his mouth. Next time, I will win. Kakashi folded his arms on his chest and looked at Guy while shaking his head and said, "You should give up early. You won't win against me. It's less believable than when I win against Feng." "Thank you for your support." Guy got up from the ground and gave Kakashi a thumbs up. But then he was a little startled, thinking of Kakashi's words just now, blinked his eyes, and said, "Kakashi, what did you just say?" "It's nothing." Kakashi shook his head. Guy frowned and couldn't help but look at Feng, who was sitting on the treetop in a doubtful look. What Kakashi said just now seemed to mean, he couldn't beat Feng. Although Feng is Kakashi's elder brother, he never thought about who's stronger between the two of them, because there should be no comparability. After all, Kakashi graduated at the age of 5 and was promoted to Chunin at the age of 6. Meanwhile Feng was just high-ranking in his class. I must have heard it wrong. Kakashi should mean that if he wants to beat him, it would be the same as Feng trying to beat Kakashi. After thinking about it carefully, Guy frowned. Whoosh! Feng jumped from the tree, looked at Kakashi and Guy, and said, "Are you going to continue sparring, or do you want to eat something first?" Since Guy often challenges Kakashi, they often practice together, so Feng and Guy can also be called acquaintances. Although Might Guy and Might Dai, the strange pair father and son duo, can attract many weird looks wherever they went, Feng never had the idea to ridicule both of them. Having mastered the Hachiman, Dewey killed 4 of the 7 legendary swordsmen, and had cast a psychological shadow on the others who survived by chance. Needless to say, his son, the man who opened the 8th gate and almost killed Sage of the 6 Paths Madara with a single kick. The most embarrassing thing is that he has been playing the idea on obtaining the Hachiman. But having said that, the Hachiman is not difficult, but at the same time difficult. I say it's not difficult because it can be practiced by almost any ninja. It is one of the most simple and crude taijutsu, but the training method is extremely difficult and it would take years of hellish training before you can master it. It is precisely because of this that only people like Might Dai and Might Guy can withstand and practice this extremely boring skill to the extreme. I just lost to Kakashi, so I have to do 3,000 squats before eating. Guy responded. He immediately began to sit up and squat in the courtyard, regardless of Kakashi's gaze that wanted to complain. But seeing Guy working hard, Kakashi also shook his head and said to Feng, "I am not hungry yet, I must continue to practice." He was not influenced by Guy, but Feng, because Feng, who possessed a bloodline limit, widened the gap between the both of them. If he didn't practice harder, he would probably be thrown further and further away, which he absolutely couldn't accept. "Okay, then I'll go to eat first, you practice." Feng didn't care. A normal person's work and rest time is completely not comparable to his, because he has the ability to accelerate time. He has to eat at least 5 meals a day, and the actual practice time is estimated to be more than the sum of Guy and Kakashi combined. Hokage office. On Sarutobi's desk, there is a document about Kakashi's recent missions and actions. This is the 3rd time that Kakashi has clashed with his team, so their task became more difficult to perform. Shimura Danzo is standing in front of Sarutobi with his cane, and said solemnly at him, "It seems that you can't find a suitable place for that child. In that case, Sarutobi, it's better if you give him to me." Sarutobi, while holding a pipe in his mouth, glanced at Danzo and said, "Are you going to train Tsukumo's child into a tool that has no emotions?" Danzo said blankly, "Leave his training to me. He will not make the same mistake as Tsukumo, and he will become an even better ninja than his father." Sarutobi snorted, stood up, and said, "Don't tell me you came to me specifically for this matter, Danzo." Danzo took a deep look at Sarutobi and said, "No, I just happened to hear about him. I came here to ask you what your attitude towards Kirigakure is. Sarutobi, are you ready for war, or?" Sarutobi took a breath, spitting out a ring of smoke. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the sky far away. After a deep breath he said, "Their conditions, even I was shocked. This matter, I'll leave it up to you." "Fine." Danzo nodded, and as he walked out of the office, he said, "Sarutobi, you don't want that child's talent to be wasted." Hitaki Tsukumo's 2 sons. He doesn't care about Feng, however, after he took notice of the talent that Kakashi has revealed, he immediately wanted to take him, but if Sarutobi disagrees, he won't have a choice but to give up. Sarutobi just ignored him. When Danzo left, he turned his head and glanced in the direction where he disappeared. He shook his head, and the figure of Hitaki Tsukumo appeared in his mind and sighed. Tsukumo's death had a big impact on Konoha. After Konoha lost a powerful figure like the White Fang, the other 4 major ninja villages are now frequently testing and provoking them. Kakashi was also affected by the death of Tsukumo. No matter which team he was assigned to, he would always have conflict with them. It has been more than 2 years since he graduated, and he has never been placed on a team that suited him. Your child is an excellent ninja, Tsukumo, but he is a bit too immature in dealing with people. Sarutobi Hiruzen muttered. The 2 children of Hitaki Tsukumo, Feng and Kakashi, if Feng can be called excellent, then Kakashi is undoubtedly a genius. If he has inherited Tsukumo's talent, then he may very well be the second Konoha's White Fang. Where to place Kakashi is his problem now. He has arranged Kakashi's team several times now, but he never stayed with them for a long time. It is impossible for him to give Kakashi to Danzo. Although Root is indeed a suitable place for Kakashi, if he does so, then he would be ashamed to face Tsukumo in death. Tsukumo was at odds with Danzo before his death, and he would never want to see his son being trained as a tool by his organization. How about this? After thinking for a while, he finally made a decision, and said at the empty roof, "Go and call Minato." It is difficult for ordinary genin to keep up with Kakashi, and the few possibly suitable jonins he thought of before would not fit with Kakashi, so the only candidate that's left is. After the death of Hitaki Tsukumo, the next most suitable one in the village to succeed the position of 4th Hokage was Namikaze Minato. Minato also needs to train some direct disciples under him. It would be suitable to give Kakashi this kind of talent to Minato for training. Yes. The dark part of the roof responded and quickly disappeared. Sarutobi went back to his seat and sat down, took another cigarette, shook his head and said, "I didn't expect to have to trouble Minato in the end." Because of the tense situation in the ninja world, Minato is needed in many places, so he thought for a long time but never made a decision. Now he has circled around and came back. He naturally didn't worry about giving it to Minato. After all, Minato was his favorite candidate to succeed the position of 4th Hokage. Teaching a genius boy like Kakashi should not be too hard for him. While thinking about it, Sarutobi Hiruzen took out a document. The file contains specific information about the students that had a relationship with Kakashi and the ninja school this year. The top one was naturally Feng's personal information, but Sarutobi just took a glance and put it aside. It's not appropriate for brothers to be in the same team. What's more, Minato is still the successor of the 4th generation of Hokage. If Feng has the same talent as Kakashi, you can ignore these in order to cultivate the next younger generation of leaders, but now they need to consider the voice of the village. Uchiha Obito, Might Guy, Nohara Lin, Sarutobi Hiruzen pondered for a moment and made a choice. The first is Uchiha Obito. A child from the Uchiha clans will be handed over to Minato, so he can have the support of the Uchiha clan when he succeeds in becoming the 4th Hokage. Finally, choosing a child of the civilian class. Might Guy is a boy, so it is ruled out that Nohara Ren is a suitable choice, and a balance can be achieved from all aspects. Clap. After making a choice, Sarutobi Hiruzen took a breath and laughed. The dignified 3rd Hokage even thought about the placement of a certain NY intervened in the placement of students from the ninja school next year after graduation. However, Kakashi's talent is indeed worthy of his attention, not to mention Namikaze Minato. It is more assured that he will decide the candidates himself. Hopefully there will be no problems. After deciding on Kakashi's problem, Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't show much interest in other students, and put back the information file about Feng and others. I hope Danzo's actions can stabilize Kirigakure. Sarutobi raised his head and exhaled a puff of smoke. The real headache for him is the situation in the whole ninja world. The friction between the major villages is constant, and it is mostly centered on Konoha. They can't help it. The country of fire is the country with the most abundant resources, and after Konoha won the Second Ninja World War it increased again. This is the reason why all villages turn their attention to Konoha. But he can't make concessions in terms of interests. In the ninja world, if you give an inch then they'll take a mile. You must use strong means to fight against foreign coveting eyes. Sarutobi Hiruzen knows this all too well, so if the situation really turns for the worst and the 3rd Ninja War breaks out, then Konoha can only fight with all its strength. After thinking this, a hint of cold light appeared in Sarutobi's eyes. Konoha, who acquired abundant resources in the Second Ninja War, has a solid and firm foundation. Although one of their top combat powers has lost, White Fang. His disciples Orochimaru, Jiraiya and Tsunade have grown into ninjas on their own. They also have a rising star in the form of Namikaze Minato. If there is really a war, then Konoha will not be afraid of the other villages. Ninja School. Before the morning class time, the playground was still full of hustle and bustle at this time, and at the center, many teenagers were seen gathering and scrambling. Fire release. Phoenix Sage Fire. A young man made a seal with his hands and opened his mouth to the people in front of him, scaring them. But only a little flame came out. After a short pause, the teenagers surrounding him suddenly laughed. This can be called ninjutsu. Go on, hit him, asshole, show me the trick. There were about 7 or 8 teenagers fighting each other. They seemed to be lower year students. They basically still didn't know much about ninjutsu. They were just pure fistfights. But two of them were a little older, and they fought decently. You can even see the shadow clone and some other jutsus. Some onlookers cheered, while the others were scared that the situation might become worse. Because it was still too early, so there's no teacher that would be able to stop this. What are you looking at? Feng appeared not far from the playground, glanced at the field, walked a few steps here and stretched out his hand to pat the shoulder of a figure outside the crowd. Kurenai was taken aback. When she noticed it was Feng, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief, and said, "Morning, Feng." "Morning." Feng smiled and said, "Let's go to the classroom." He's not interested in watching children fight. Kurenai glanced at the center of the fight, hesitated, and said, "That." "Huh?" Feng looked at her. Kurenai said helplessly. "That guy that's getting beaten over there." Feng said strangely. "Who?" Kurenai pointed to one of the several teenagers fighting in the field and said, "He's called Ibu Shiri, my uncle's son." "I've never heard of him." Feng shrugged. He was really not interested in a character who he had no impression of and said, "Boys fighting is normal. You girls shouldn't interfere. The teacher must be watching this anyway, so you don't need to worry about that." But Kurenai was a little helpless. No matter what, he's her cousin, so of course she wanted them to stop them from beating him. Seeing Kurenai's predicament, Feng smiled and took a step forward, making a simple hand seal, and pressing it gently on the ground. Earth release. Earth movement. Huh? Looking at Feng's movements, Kurenai was surprised at first. As she immediately felt the ground under her shake, she immediately became alert, preventing her to fall. However, the crowd gathered on the playground was suddenly swayed, and several teenagers in the melee were also separated because of the sudden movement. "Feng, you," Kurenai stabilized herself. Before finishing her words, Feng had put her finger in front of her lips, told her to be quiet, and smiled. "Okay. This should stop them, let's go." Many students who were stumbling around did not know what just happened, thought it was an earthquake that made them panic, and the fight was completely interrupted. But not all students are frightened. A student in the crowd frowned and looked in the direction where Feng left, apparently aware that the occurrence just now was Feng's doing. Truly reckless, the boy shook his head. He looked a little younger than Kakashi, and he wore clothes with the Uchiha clan logo. Although he looks inconspicuous among the crowd, his name was renowned. Uchiha Shisui. Unlike Uchiha Obito, Shisui is a genius who is no less inferior to Uchiha Itachi. Before opening the Sharingan, he was able to make his name after the battle with Kirigakure, and after awakening the strongest Mangekyo Sharingan he was termed the strongest. Even gods can fall under his illusions. It was not only Shisui and Kurenai who discovered that Feng used Earth Release, but also Nohara Rin, who was also looking at Feng early in the morning. "Feng, you are too reckless." Rin walked over, muttered at Feng, and said, "But Feng, you're so powerful. The technique of earth movement seems to be sea-level earth ninjutsu." Not noticing that Rin was here, Feng made a low-pitched gesture at her, smiled and said, "I stole it from Kakashi, just a trick." Shisui just smiled and looked at this scene. He didn't intend to come over and say anything, he turned and left, but then he stopped after taking a few steps. Not far away, a teenager who was wearing Uchiha robes and goggles just like him, was standing in front of Feng while making a fist, and said, "Hey, Feng, let's fight." It was Uchiha Obito that challenged Feng. Today, he rarely encountered any accidents on the road. He arrived at school early and he walked by the playground. As he glanced, he saw Feng and Rin talking and laughing casually, causing his rage to explode on the spot. It just so happened that the playground has a bad atmosphere from the previous scuffle, so Obito thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to beat Feng, so he looked at him with his fists clenched. Boring. Feng glanced at Obito. He was really not interested in Obito before his transformation, as the Obito before the transformation was kind of a loser. And Feng also didn't have any idea of bullying children. "Damn, stop for me." However, seeing that Feng didn't want to fight, he couldn't hold back his anger and lunged in front of Feng. Whoosh! Obito attacked. Feng sighed, and casually avoided the attack of Obito. He reached out and put his hand on Obito's shoulders. With a slight pressure, Obito lost his balance, as his whole person spun around in the air and fell awkwardly. Seeing this scene, Rin covered her mouth. Kurenai was also speechless for a while. Does this guy Obito really belong to the Uchiha clan? Uchiha's name will be tarnished because of him. In their impression, the seniors from the Uchiha clan are powerful figures that many families are in awe of. And among the Uchiha clan almost all of the members are geniuses, and they are always among the best in each class. But Obito's gap among his other clan members is a bit too big. However, just as Kurenai's voice fell, a voice came from one side. I can't pretend that I didn't hear you. Kurenai didn't notice that there was already someone next to her and was calmly talking. You are. Kurenai stared at the person beside her, and said, Uchiha Shisui? Both of them belonged to the Uchiha clan, although he didn't care much about Obito, but when it's something that involves his clan then he named Uchiha Shisui is very famous in the ninja school. Nobody in his grade can be matched against him, and rumor has it that he even defeated a genin not long ago. His level can undoubtedly make him graduate early. In the eyes of many people, Shisui is the only person that can compete against Kakashi. Noticing the commotion on Kurenai's side, Feng turned his head. The moment he looked at Shisui, he recognized him immediately, and said with his head tilted. Kurenai, you should not question the reputation of the Uchiha clan. Moreover, it's too one-sided to question their clan just because of Obito. The Uchiha still has many geniuses. Hearing Feng's words, Shisui's expression eased a little bit. Originally, he didn't intend to interfere with Feng's affairs. There was no need for him to have unnecessary conflicts. But because of what Kurenai said earlier he had no choice but to be involved. However, in the next instant, Shisui's pupils suddenly shrank. Because a hand quietly rested on his shoulder, this made his body stiff in an instant because the owner of that hand was none other than Feng. How did? Shisui's pupils trembled violently, and there was a glimmer of disbelief. Feng showed a harmless smile at Shisui, then took his hand back without speaking and left. Not far behind him, the Feng who was standing in place and talking to Shisui turned into a white smoke and dissipated in an instant. Shadow clone. The clone stayed in place. In that moment, Feng left a clone in the same place, while the main body reached his side in an instant. As a genius, Shisui naturally understood what just happened in an instant, but even if he understood it, he still couldn't help taking a breath. The clone technique and the body replacement, how could he be that fast? Feng's body became a clone and appeared beside him incredibly fast. In other words, if he was in a battle just now, he would have been killed by Feng instantly, and even after he was killed he still wouldn't know how he died. This, Kurenai and Rin were also taken aback. They didn't react for a while, cause they didn't see clearly how Feng left a clone in place, while the main body arrived at Shisui in an instant. The two women glanced at each other, and both saw a hint of shock in each other's eyes. After reacting, the two women glanced at Shisui who was still in a daze, and then immediately chased after Feng. Shisui took a breath, he forcibly calmed the waves in his heart, turned his head to look in the direction where Feng had left, his eyes still trembling a little. Kakashi's name and being a genius is known by everyone, and Feng, who, compared to him, would always be labeled as general. Talent, ordinary, and no talent. But Shisui at this moment can only say one word to these people. Blind. Although I don't know Kakashi's strength, based on what Feng did a moment ago, Shisui could conclude that Feng will never be worse than Kakashi, but he might even be stronger. Such strength can't be obtained suddenly. That guy has been keeping a low profile and is deliberately hiding his talent. Even after all the criticism he received, he was never influenced. Shisui murmured in his heart. At this moment, his judgment on Feng was formidable, compared with the young, full of vigor Kakashi, the elder brother. Hitaki Feng not only possesses formidable strength, but also has a calm, restrained and mature personality. Such a person is undoubtedly stronger than Kakashi. If I didn't show my real strength as a genius, I'm afraid he would not reveal anything. Shisui took a deep breath, feeling that the name of being a genius he carried had become heavier. Uchiha Shisui in his youth should be no worse than Itachi, but it is not clear when he awakened his Sharingan and gained the Mangekyo. Feng arrived in the classroom thinking. Because he is one of the top geniuses in the original story, Uchiha Shisui's attitude towards his peers would always be a bit arrogant, so he used a little trick to see how the future Shisui of the body flicker would react. The result seemed a little bit close. Feng, just now, just after Feng entered the classroom, Kurenai and Ren also arrived. They couldn't help but question Feng as soon as they sat down next to him. Although it is not clear what happened, Feng seemed to scare Uchiha Shisui just now. At that time, it was obvious that Uchiha Shisui's expression and eyes became cautious. I just said hello to Uchiha Shisui just now, not that big of a deal, Feng smiled. After all, it is now the tense situation before the Third War, so there's no problem in revealing some of his strength. Kurenai looked at Feng with her eyes wide open and said, but he was obviously scared by you. Feng took out the textbook and put it on the table, thinking about it. Well, he should be. I have more than 2 years of experience in ninjutsus. Although Feng said it was simple, Kurenai knew that what happened was definitely not that simple. After all, Uchiha Shisui is a genius who is famous throughout the school. Being able to scare Uchiha Shisui is definitely something to brag about. However, Feng didn't seem to care about such a thing, and he was still talking and laughing as usual, which made Kurenai admire Feng even more. Compared with the other boys who show off just because of a little achievement, Feng's personal charm is undoubtedly at the top. Noticing Kurenai's gaze, Feng sighed softly in his heart. This look seems to have planned to give him a baby. Shouldn't she be a little restrained? But I really didn't seem to have done anything much. Sigh. It's nice to be young. Feng also wanted to join the life of being a ninja in this world, because it's such a rare opportunity. He wanted to enjoy the stress-free and sunny teenage life he planned from the beginning, but unfortunately he couldn't do it. No matter how he deliberately tried to forget, he will always thought of the Third Ninja World War, the summoning of the Nine Tails, and Akatsuki's destruction of Konoha. This is a dangerous world, a world that requires sufficient strength to have peace. Feng leaned on the chair and stretched his body, looking out the window and muttered, if it's like this every day, that would be great. Kurenai tilted her head and looked over and said, Feng, did you say something? No, it's nothing. Feng shook his head and immediately burst into laughter. If you really traveled the world, there will be various obstacles for you to push forward, unless you stand at the top from birth. Being able to come into this world with the ability to manipulate time, and before the start of the Third Ninja War at that, was already a good start. If it was in Kirigakure village and in the academy, they had to fight each other to the death, and if you also remove his ability to manipulate time, then it would be incredibly difficult for him to survive. Thinking of this in his heart, Feng was waiting for today's test while training the flow of chakra in his body. Speaking of which, the cultivation method of Hachiman shouldn't be difficult. Feng muttered, manipulating the chakra in his body, trying to figure out the specific part in the body one by one according to the Hachiman in his memory. He wanted to try if he could find out the practice method of Hachiman by himself. The real difficulty of this forbidden technique lies in the diligence and discipline, the individual's accumulation over the years, rather than the initial development, otherwise it would be impossible for Might Dai to figure it out. To put it simply, Hachiman should be like writing a word repeatedly. It needs to be written countless times and you would need perseverance, unlike jutsus such as reanimation and flying Raijin jutsus that require innate skill and talent. Although the Hachiman was a physical skill developed by a genin, it was not so simple to get used to it. Feng could not perform it completely for a short moment. He found the 8 corresponding positions of the Hachiman in his body, but how to train and make it loosen up for him to freely control its activation and deactive to the real Hachiman. Still need to practice and try other methods, Feng pondered. He is considering whether to talk to Might Dai. If he wants his foundation to be firm and stable, the best method for him is to ask Might Dai for guidance. After all, no matter how simple the technique is, he would still run into some difficulties while practicing it. The morning test was an integrated test of physical skills, including tree climbing, load bear running, etc. But this is not difficult for the students of ninja school. Even for Obito these tests are relatively easy to pass. Feng returned home after the test. After finishing his meal, Feng left again to look for Might Dai and his father. Unfortunately, Might Dai was out on a mission. He only found Guy on the place they usually train in. Without Might Dai, there was no way for him to ask for advice. But Feng was not in a hurry, so he returned to his residence, picked up the Chakra sword, and walked back to the courtyard. This time I should be able to. When he came to the courtyard, Feng held the Chakra's sword, and after a light breath, he immediately practiced his physical skills without using shadow clones. After his battle with Kakashi yesterday, when he returned home to continue practicing his swordsmanship, he felt that he vaguely touched the threshold of Chakra's flow. Konoha White Fang's Hitaki swordsmanship has two stages. The core of the first stage is Chakra flow. The so-called Chakra flow means that the chakra within the body can be transferred to any weapon in a smooth manner, making the sharpness and strength of the weapon to increase. Once this ability is mastered, the power of the one performing the Hitaki swordsmanship would skyrocket. As for the core of the second stage, it is the advanced version of Chakra flow, that is, the ability to change the form and shape of their chakra. Any weapon is already sharp itself, but when added with a chakra that further enhances and can be freely controlled by the wielder, the overall power of the sword will be further increased together with the Hitaki swordsmanship. No matter what level of strength the cultivator has, as long as he masters the first stage, he would have the strength of a Chunin, and if he masters the second stage, he would have the strength of a Jonin. As for going further, it would depend on the person's talent. Regardless if you complete a thorough training, unlike most difficult techniques like the flying Raijin, it is not something ordinary people can easily master or even just try to understand. It might seem that the Hitaki swordsmanship is very ordinary, but in reality, it can still be improved. Feng has never laxed with his practice, and it is precisely because the use of Hitaki swordsmanship for itself is a very effective means for him to improve his chakra manipulation, and it does not conflict with most physical techniques. Even while using the Hachiman, you can still use it normally. Haha. Feng kept swinging his sword, and he could vaguely see a layer of white light trailing on his sword as he slashed. This exercise lasted for several hours before he stopped. After returning to the village for a meal, he returned to continue his practice. 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, in the state of accelerating 3 times, Feng continued to do the most basic training exercises of Hitaki swordsmanship, combining his still rusty chakra flow in it. With the passage of time, the roughness gradually became smooth, the unfamiliarity gradually became proficient, until Feng, feeling that the chakra flow on the blade almost reached the most perfect synchronization, then slashed. That's it. A gleam of excitement flashed in Feng's eyes, as he carefully comprehended the state he was in just now, and then slashed forward again, still achieving a perfect slash. After trying dozens of times and making sure that his proficiency finally reached the standard, Feng took a deep breath and relaxed a little. He finally comprehended the first stage of the Hitaki swordsmanship. Let's try its power. After Feng calmed down for a while, he came to a wooden stake. As his eyes flashed, he took a step forward. With a sudden wave of the chakra sword in his hand, a white light flashed across the void. Haha. He hugged the thick wooden stake. Under Feng's sword, it was like tofu, passing through without the slightest hindrance, while the other half of it slipped silently on the side. This is really amazing. With the Hitaki sword, when I encounter an opponent who hasn't mastered chakra flow, I should be able to cut him down without a hitch. Looking at the power of this blow, Feng muttered. There is no problem with White Fang's assessment. With the first stage of the Hitaki swordsmanship completed, he indeed possessed the strength of a Chunin-level ninja, and may even have an advantage against the average Chunin. Feng's strength had already reached the strength of a Chunin-class ninja by virtue of his ninjutsu and taijutsu for a long time, and now that he's mastered the first stage of the Hitaki swordsmanship, even under normal conditions, he can already be considered as an elite ninja. Next, let's try while I'm in a double-speed state. After Feng exhaled, a ray of light flashed in his eyes. Cutting off the wooden stake just now is a slash that is used under normal conditions. Now that he would be under the double-speed state, the Hitaki swordsmanship should undoubtedly exert more power. Quietly, Feng entered the triple-speed state. If you stand not far away, you can see that Feng at this moment seems to have entered a strange fast-forward state, and the whole person's movements, including the rate of his breathing, appear abnormal. In this state, Feng grasped the Hitaki sword, and after mobilizing the flow of chakra, he slashed towards the wooden stake in front. Haha. The triple speed is already fast enough to bring up afterimages. Almost an instant, in the afterimage, an arc-like sword light could be seen, flashing away, directly cutting the thick wooden stake. A trace of shock flashed in Feng's eyes. In the accelerated time state, the attack range of his slash had already extended beyond the blade. The slash was nearly a foot long. This is something that can only be done in the second stage of the flagged wood swordsmanship. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Feng walked around the back, clearly seeing a line in the center, dividing the stump in two, also leaving a trace on the ground. It should not be as powerful as the real second stage Hitaki swordsmanship, but in the double speed state, also adding on chakra flow, the Hitaki swordsmanship can indeed extend the slashing range. Feng took a breath and gauged for his own strength level. Special shinobi who is good at speed type. It may not be easy for him to fight those special ninjas who specialize at illusion and forbidden arts, but for general ninjas and even elite ninjas, with his strong speed, it is possible for him to kill opponents in a very short time. And the best thing about being good at speed is that he would not be afraid of facing a single or a bunch of enemies by himself. A special Jonin who is generally good at illusion or forbidden skills may not be able to deal with the combination of 3 or 4 elite Chunins, but if he is replaced by him, then even if he can't quickly kill his opponents, his speed is enough for him to advance and retreat safely. Improving one's strength would undoubtedly bring joy to someone, but this joy didn't last long, as Feng gradually calmed down. Because he knew that the special Jonins are the authentic Jonin level class shinobis, but for him, he was in an embarrassing situation. Because even though his fighting capabilities are enough for him to reach the level of a Jonin, in terms of his ability to survive in battle, it is much worse than true Jonins. I'm still lacking, Feng groaned. Without the physique of the Uzumaki clan, and a tailed beast sealed in his body, his current chakra reserves in a strict sense is only comparable to that of a Chunin, and there is still a big gap from physical strength. However, how much physical strength can a body of a 10-year-old have? When time is accelerating, physical strength would also be expended. If I could master the Hachiman as soon as possible, that would be great. Feng helplessly thought of this. Before he masters Hachiman, physical strength and chakra reserves would be his weakness. But fully mastering Hachiman was not something he can consider for now. Thinking about it carefully, so long as the strength that bursts out in an instant is strong enough, then even if his chakra reserves are limited, the discrepancy would be nothing. Like Namikaze Minato, he can instantly cut down 50 people. Even if his chakra reserves is short, it does not hinder the Yellow Flash to be famous in the ninja world. It seems that my fighting style in the future is to end the battle in an instant. Feng said silently. Regardless of whether his chakra is limited or not, he still needs to practice Hachiman. With the combination of the Hachiman and time acceleration, he truly has the capital to end the battle in an instant. As long as he's fast, who cares about the lack of chakra? The fight won't last long. Under normal circumstances, I should not be inferior to Chunin shinobis. And if I activate the triple speed state, I can even contend against Jonin class shinobis. But if I want to go further, there are 3 ways. Feng pondered. The first one is the most common, that is, step-by-step physical exercises, training his chakra control, and using double speed state to make his body grow faster. When his body achieves the age of about 12 or 13 years old, he will have the physique and chakra reserves of a Jonin. Learn a standard ninjutsu at the Jonin level, then he can be considered as a shinobi under normal conditions. As for the second one, he would continue to practice the Hitaki swordsmanship. If he can fully master the second stage of the Hitaki swordsmanship, then even if his chakra reserves and physical strength are still lacking, he would still have the strength comparable to his father, White Fang. And lastly, the third way is for him to practice Hachiman. It would be best to have a partner in all 3 of them. Feng made a judgment. For ordinary people, they would be choosing the first one and just focus on that and practice hard. Because if they did the 3 methods simultaneously, not only won't they have enough time, if they become greedy and bit more than they can chew, then they won't be proficient in any of it, and their overall strength would just be mediocre. But Feng was different. With his ability to manipulate time, he would have more time to practice. In the future, the unreal clock will continue to advance, and it may even achieve 4 times, 5 times speed. If that's the case, then he is absolutely confident that he can train in the 3 methods all at the same time. I'll set a small goal. I need to become a Jonin in 6 months. Feng clenched his fists and took a breath. Jonin. the strength of Jonin that he refers to as under normal conditions. With this kind of strength under normal circumstances, he may be able to achieve the speed the same as Namikaze Minato with 3 times, 4 times, or even 5 times the speed. Only at this level can he have a certain degree of self-preservation if the Third Shinobi War broke out any time, and not simply die because of some accidents. After leaving his place of practice, Feng returned to the village. The security became a little tighter again. Compared to the previous 2 days, there are obviously more guards on the streets today, and the frequency of patrols has also become more. But this is only on the surface. The Konoha Anbu in the shadows that are under the direct supervision of the third Hokage are monitoring and closely staring at every corner of the village, searching for enemies and spies that may sneak inside. Feng noticed that there were quite a few eyes and seemingly examined him. After confirming that there was no problem, the feeling of being monitored quietly disappeared. The feeling of being secretly monitored is naturally very uncomfortable, but it was unavoidable during this tense period before the ninja war. Various villages were sending out spies to obtain important information. Because of his training under the speed state, the contents in his fridge are depleted very quickly, so he needs to replenish it every 1 or 2 days. Feng walked out to buy some stuff. After taking a few steps, a somewhat familiar voice came from the meat shop next door. Feng looked sideways and saw a familiar figure holding a bag, standing in front of the shop owner selling beef, staring at the boss. What? The price of beef increased to 450 ryo. This is too expensive. Might Dai complained unacceptably. The shop owner said helplessly, the purchase price is very high. I won't have any profit if I sell it with the previous price. Affected by the tension of the Third Ninja War, prices have undoubtedly started to rise. Although Konoha is still relatively stable, the various channels for Konoha to purchase supplies have become tense, for fear of being attacked by enemy ninjas. Some large supply carriers would require ninja escort, which also increases the consumption of manpower that requires additional resources. Too expensive. Might Dai scratched his hair, which hurt for a while. He was just a genin, and because he couldn't find anyone willing to form a team with him, he could only take on a few menial tasks. The price increase is undoubtedly a heavy blow for him, but his son Might Dai is growing. During the developmental period, a meal of meat a day is essential for him. After struggling for a while, Might Dai still bought a piece of beef, but the size was smaller compared to the last time, thinking that it would not be a big problem to eat less. Their situation is difficult, Feng murmured as he watched Dai buying the meat. It was still okay on his side. Although Sakumo passed away, the inheritance that he left was enough to provide for him and Kakashi for several years. Coupled with Kakashi's promotion to Chunin, they don't need to worry about prices going up for the time being. But having said that, Might Dai opened the 8th inner gate to beat the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. So if he opens the 7th gate, his strength could be comparable to Jonin-class shinobis. After becoming a high-level ninja, it would be considered an extraordinary promotion. It's really questionable. It is just that the tasks that Might Dai performs have no relation concerning battles. They are the worthless missions like cleaning garbage, looking for lost cats, etc. So Konoha has never been aware of the real strength of Might Dai. After thinking a little bit, Feng quickly purchased a few ingredients and returned home after a simple meal. He left home again and looked for Might Dai. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.